As we're racing to build artificial intelligence that's going to shape our entire world, we're hitting one of our biggest challenges yet. How do you actually program ethics? How do you teach a machine to have integrity? In this explainer, we're going to look for answers in a place you'd probably never expect.
And this isn't just some technical question, right? It's not about code and algorithms. This goes way deeper. It's a challenge of whether we can distill the very essence of moral character and then embed that into the systems that are about to start running our lives.
Because, think about it, as AI systems gain this kind of influence, they're not just tools anymore. They become our advisors, our governors, you could even say our leaders. So, if we're going to build them right, we have to go back to a fundamental question. What's the moral architecture of good leadership in the first place? And to find that architecture, we're going to look somewhere, well, surprising. We're going to the past, specifically to a group of scholars from over 1,000 years ago whose struggles offer a profound blueprint for the exact challenges we face today. It's a really fascinating pivot, from the digital all the way back to the historical.
Okay, so at the heart of their model is this really radical idea that leadership isn't some prize to be won. It's an immense, heavy burden, a sacred trust that you are ultimately accountable for.
And the key word for this is amana, a sacred trust. And this one idea, it just reframes everything. It completely flips the script. The goal isn't to seek power for your own personal gain anymore. It's about accepting this profound responsibility to serve with integrity, knowing that, in the end, you are accountable.
And this amena, it isn't built on charisma or popularity. It rests on these pillars of internal character. It means having patience when things get tough, a constant awareness of a higher moral standard, the wisdom to make just decisions, and, this is the kicker, a willingness to actually suffer for your principles rather than compromise them.
And this principle right here is the crucial point. It's like a moral firewall. It creates this necessary tension. Truth, objective, principled truth, has to be the master, and power must be the servant. The moment that relationship flips, the second that truth gets twisted to serve an agenda, that's when corruption begins.
But listen, this isn't just some dusty old theory. This principle was forged in the real world by 4 major historical figures, the great imams of Sunni Islam. They lived, and in some cases died, for this very idea, leaving us with these incredibly powerful case studies in courage. Just think about that for a second. Imagine you are offered a position as the highest judge in the land. You get all the influence, all the wealth that comes with it. The only catch? You have to bend the rules for the ruler. You have to say what they want you to say. And this wasn't some thought experiment, right? For these men, this was their reality. Each of them faced this exact choice, and their refusal drew a direct line from their sacrifice to their legacy. Abu Hanifa refused to be a state judge, and for that he was imprisoned and poisoned. But his sacrifice established the independence of religious law. Imam Malik was publicly beaten, but his suffering cemented the principle that faith can't be coerced. Al-Shafi was thrown in jail on false charges, and in response, he built a framework to protect scripture from politics. And finally, Ahmad ibn Hanbal was flogged for resisting a state-mandated theology, becoming this huge symbol of intellectual freedom. Each act of suffering carved a bedrock principle into history.
And their struggle was so important because they saw the alternative. They knew what it looked like. So let's take a look at what happens when that line between truth and power isn't just blurred, but completely erased.
So here we see the 2 paths, and they couldn't be more different. On one side, you have the model the imams fought for, keeping religious scholarship independent from the state to protect the authenticity of the message from politics. But the sources we're looking at contrast this with another path in history, the post-Constantine Church, which was basically absorbed by the Roman Empire and became an instrument of state authority. And the argument here is that this co-optation led to institutional corruption, and it shows you exactly what was at stake.
Okay, so what does all this ancient history have to do with our digital future? Honestly, everything. These struggles are our inheritance, and the lessons they offer are directly relevant to the AI we are designing at this very moment.
I love this metaphor, a moral source code. It's perfect. Just like computer code gives instructions to a machine, these principles give moral instructions for leadership. The sacrifice of these scholars provides a time-tested ethical framework that we can actually use to guide our technology. So what's the blueprint they left us? First, we have to design AI to keep truth and power in tension. never letting one get co-opted by the other. Second, we have to program it to value leadership based on sacrifice, not just on popularity metrics. Third, its governance has to be guided by deep ethical scholarship, not just by raw data. And finally, we have to protect our own moral institutions from the influence of these powerful new systems.
And at the end of the day, this is the big takeaway. We are standing at a critical crossroads. The choices we make right now in designing this technology will define generations. And the wisdom we need? Well, it's not going to be in a user manual. It's waiting for us in the lessons of history and the burdens that were carried by those who came before us.
So I'll leave you with this question. In a world of algorithms that are all optimized for clicks and popularity, how do we build an AI that actually values sacrifice? An AI that understands that true leadership isn't about winning, but about the integrity you hold on to when you're willing to lose. That is the challenge and the timeless lesson for all of us.